Welcome to Out of the Closet Into the World, a podcast dedicated to celebrating authenticity, embracing our true selves, and creating a world where love and inclusivity truly shines. I'm your host, Ada Arencibia, and each month we'll bring you powerful stories, inspiring interviews, and real conversations that lift up the LGBTQ plus community and their allies. Whether you are on your own journey of self discovery, standing up for equality, or simply looking to learn and grow, this space is for you. Together, we'll break down barriers, challenge misconceptions, and share the strength in our stories. So, wherever you are, whatever your truth may be, step into the world with us. Let's embrace who we are and make a difference, one voice at a time. Let's dive in. In this episode, we uncovered the untold story of Azsia, a journey marked by heartbreak, resilience, and a fight to reclaim her identity. What happens when the world sees one version of you, but your truth lies buried beneath the surface? This isn't just her story, it's a testament to the strength it takes to rise from the ashes. Brace yourself for a raw, unfiltered conversation that will leave you inspired, moved, and forever changed. Welcome to Out of the Closet Into the World, the podcast where we'll break down walls, lift up voices, and celebrate the strength of being your true self. I'm your host, Ada Arencibia. We will hear inspiring stories of people who have faced challenges and embrace who they really are. Join me on this journey of honesty, empowerment, and change. Together, let's step out of the closet and into the world. Let's dive in. Hi, Aja. How are you? Welcome to the show. It's such an honor to have you here with us today.
Hi, Ada, and thank you for having me.
Yes, yes, yes. I cannot wait to deep dive into your journey and for you to share your experiences when it comes to embracing your true self. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Now, your story is one of resilience and hope, and I can't wait to dive into it. Now, let's start at the beginning. Your early years, where do you grew up and what was your childhood like?
I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, where I was born and raised. Childhood for me was very interesting because I was battling identity at a very young age, as early as 5 years old. I can remember because I was in private school at the time. And I just didn't understand being so young and having certain feelings, and not feelings about other little boys, but feelings about my outer exterior not matching what I was feeling inside. And I was kind of taken back or confused. And then, ironically, growing up and playing with like the boys, I was always made to be like the girl, or made out to be like a very feminine character in like play dates, like house and things like that. And it just never made sense to me. I grew up in the projects in Jacksonville, Florida, but my mom was a single mom that worked very hard to give us a lifestyle that didn't match where we lived, because we were taught home is what you make it. And
Mhm.
you wouldn't believe my mom's apartment if you walked into it. Like, people could not believe we actually lived in the projects the way my mom lived. So a lot of my qualities and my taste in things I get from my mom, because my mom's also a Cancer. I'm born July 16th. My mom's birthday is July the 20th. So I was a birthday gift to my mom 4
Oh,
days before
wow.
her 17th birthday. I grew up in the home with one sister at first, because me and my sister were 3 years apart. And then later down the line, my baby sister came along, which I probably had moved with my father by then, because me and my baby sister are like 10 years apart. However, I do have a really close, tight-knit family. I communicate with my parents on a regular, all of my siblings, my nieces, my nephews, when I do get to see them. So I'm fortunate enough to have a very supportive family. What
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Now, was it that way in the beginning for my dad? Not so much, but once he became to understand who it was I ultimately wanted to be, and it was, I think, your parents are very protective of you. And I
Mhm.
think when before there was an Aja, him wanting to protect me because I was very small. I was smaller than the other kids and just being bullied or harassed and things like that. I think my dad, his overprotection came in. But once I became the woman that I was born to be, the dynamics of our relationship changed in a lot of ways.
Mm. It sounds like your upbringing taught you resilience. Now, I'm curious because I know you mentioned that your dad at first he was not
Whew.
accepting of who you were. Now, can you go into a little bit more specific details or moments that during that time that influenced your journey today?
Well, a funny story. When I moved with my dad, I think he thought that I was this heterosexual, because my dad has 5 kids and they were all born male. Okay. Well, can you imagine being the oldest of those 5? So imagine what dad wants for the oldest, and it's
Right.
not panning out that way at all. So the struggle was real. So imagine, portraying something that was not there, and then I'm taking clothes that I really wanted to wear. I'm putting them in my book bag. That way when I get on the bus or get where I can change to like my friend's house before we get on the bus, that's what I was doing, because my dad was not going to be accepting of, me cross dressing or dressing up in these, girly frilly clothes and these pinks and purples. He was just like, he was not for it. He was
Mm.
not for it. And that really drove a wedge between our relationship, because, like I said, I think my dad assumed I was one way. And then once his child moved into the home with him, he realized, like, I think my child is gay. I think something's going on. And instead of him talking about it, which I love, like the new era and the new generation of parenting, because they're addressing their children and they feel comfortable talking to their parents about these things. Now
Right.
in 1990, it was not like that for me. It was just, I could not go to my father and say that. I was terrified of my dad, because my dad was such a macho man. He's a man's man, and he was just not for it. So it was no way possible that I could go and say, "Hey, this is what I'm feeling." And it was not going to go that way. So for me, it was like living through a nightmare until I could get of age to part ways with my family, so I can ultimately go off and become the woman I have been feeling I was for
Mm.
so long. So can you imagine being 15 or 16 and meeting people or individuals that were like you, and the things you were looking for and the qualities, and learning how to become a woman? My friends like, oh my God. So every year, my senior year, like when I would get out of school for summer, I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
I would not go home. I would be with my extended family the entire summer. And then I would go home in time to get ready for school, go to school the entire year. And then when the summer hits, I'm back with my extended family. That was the routine. My parents knew that was the routine. So on the last day of school, they were not looking for me to come home, because they knew because it just was a life that I could be me. I didn't
Right.
have to, hide my identity or just shell things in. I could really just be me and be accepted and embraced and loved by my friends. So yeah, that was my thing. I would every summer, like,
Mm.
until I became an adult. And once I didn't come home for many years, until, because I made a promise to myself that I'm not going to come home to my family until I was who I wanted to be, because no one was going to change my mind about it. So cancers are very extreme, and when we want something, we're going to do it. So I just was like, I'm going to go all the way. So imagine, parting from your family, and then you come back with breast implants and face work and a little touch of body, honey. And it's like, oh, and it's like, yeah, because no one's going to stop me.
Mm,
Because this is what I've been feeling for so long. This is what's been bottled up in me. And I could not, growing up in a, Christian holiness, you're hearing these things every Sunday about you're going to go to hell and men sleeping with men and women sleeping with, and it's like, it's so confusing because even that dynamic didn't change who I wanted to be. If I'm going to hell, I'm going to hell. But I know what I feel, honey, and I should be wearing 22 inches of hair and nails, and it just was not matching.
right,
So
right.
until I was able to obtain or start that transition, I was not going home because no one was gonna stop me.
It's amazing how those early experiences shape our foundation. Now, speaking of milestones, let's talk about your teenage years. I know that you mentioned that you used to, spend time with your friends and you used to take your time in coming back home. Now, were there any pivotal moments that you can recall or challenges that stood out in that time? Like, take us back and paint us a picture.
Teenage years, a moment that stuck out. Well, okay, a moment that was so unforgettable because, one thing I know about the gay community, they can be a kiki, and the tea is the tea, honey. And if it's
Mm,
tea and it's some hot tea. So, memory of my teenage childhood was, so my parents were aware of me being with my friends during the summer, but my grandmother was not.
mm,
So my grandmother, there was a newspaper called the Florida Star, and it would have like missing people, like what's going on in the city of Jacksonville, and NAACP, and all that. My grandmother put me in that paper as a missing child. So can you imagine your gay friends seeing this paper and like, girl, you're missing, and they're making a kiki about it, about getting a reward and things like that, which was so embarrassing. And I had to call my grandmother, and I was like, hey, because me and my grandmother were very close. I grew up with my grandmother, and my grandmother taught like pre-K, and I went to school with my grandmother from the time I was 3 up until the time I was 5 years old, maybe 2 to 5 years old. So we were very close growing up. So I had to have that conversation with her, like, hey, I'm not missing. I'm just out being ultimately who I want to be.
yeah.
And my mom and dad knows. And she was like, okay. So, and that was like, from that moment, she was also one of the individuals when I, I came back as Aja. And a grandmother's love is so amazing because I'll never forget going to her door and just her embracing me and loving me for me. And you hear so many stories or you even see those stories being portrayed on TV today where the parents are like, no child of mine is gonna do this, and you're gonna go to hell, and you're not accepted here, and we don't want you in our house, and they're throwing the kids out. And I never had to deal with that, maybe because I was afraid, to be honest, like we spoke about earlier about coming out to my parents.
Yeah.
I honestly never officially came out. I just came back home as Asha.
How old were you when you came back home as Aja?
Between 20 and 21 years old.
2021.
So leaving home at 16, navigating because I graduated high school in 1996. I was 16 turning 17 that year. So just imagine from leaving high school all those years and, traveling with Basha, who was my gay mother, just learning the entertainment thing and just the lifestyle and how to be a woman, and just meeting all the who's who in the community, traveling to Atlanta, meeting the Naisha Duprees, and all the Paula Sinclairs and the Tina DeVores, and just like, oh my God, the Paris Francis and all of
Yes.
that. So it's like, I'm like, ooh, I think I like it over here. Like,
The girls that pay the way.
exactly.
Now, can you tell us a little bit more about your phenomenal drag mother? For
Yes.
those that don't know her, tell us a little bit more about her.
Basha was such a fun person. Like, she didn't take life too serious. It was just all about pageantry and entertainment. That was her livelihood, and she had mastered it, honey. Let me tell you, she was a force to be reckoned with. And everything that I've learned competing, I learned from her. We had such great times together. Now, the difference with my mother, Basha, Basha did not want to be a woman. Basha
Mm,
wanted to be an entertainer. So the things that she had done to herself to enhance her body, breasts, and body and face, it was for the stage, because Basha was Roosevelt, who was a male lead entertainer who was very feminine, by the way, and he had won every male pageant that was out there to exist at the time. So
wow.
imagine him, being at the top and then converting and transitioning to a woman, and then snatching all those same Miss titles of the Mister that he had already won.
Right.
So everything was about the stage and the show. And she was very, you do not have to spend thousands of dollars to look a certain way. She was very, I'm gonna make this look good, and it would be glue gunned down, but you would
Mm,
never know it the way she wore it, and emoted it, and or just portrayed it. She was that girl. She really was. And there was a lot of us that learned a lot from her, that started to dance with her. Like, a lot of girls from my era got their start from Basha.
that is so beautiful. To sum it up, she was resourceful, right?
Basha was New York, New York.
Okay.
And before her New York, New York talent, she used to do that In Vogue 70s mix from Soul Train.
Mm,
We would do that. The Hey Sister Go Sister, it was like this In Vogue medley. But she was that, and then she was Liza with a Z, which is one of the talent I won Continental Elite with, and New York, New York. She was a perfectionist when it came to talent. Like, we would have rehearsed for hours.
now, true or false? Is it true that she used to travel with her dancers on a U-Haul and she used to put her dancers in the back?
True. That would be, now that was before she started getting like sponsors, and then we were being flown, or we had big like 16 passenger vans. So it's almost like started from the bottom, now we're here, because
Yes.
now people see, what she's doing, and she's winning. So now they're investing more, because they're seeing that she's talented and she can put on a show. So yeah, we did used to travel on the back of U-Hauls.
Now, can you let us know what was the first pageant that she helped you, put yourself together and that you were successful at?
Miss Sweetheart Newcomer, which before it was Sweetheart International, when it was just regular old Sweetheart in Savannah, Georgia.
What year was this?
1996, the year I graduated high school.
Wow.
And it was the
Very,
first,
very, very young.
and it was the first year for the newcomer. And there was 13 girls, 13 or 14, and I won. So that was the first pageant she fully helped me prepare for, and entered me into that pageant, and I won. So
Mm.
me and my mom, she was the Miss Sweetheart and I was the Sweetheart Newcomer. First crown, both of us.
Now, Aja, I love the fact that you speak so highly of your drag mother, and I know you have your own special way that you think of her. How do you hope that people remember your drag mother?
I hope they remember her from her talent, because like I said, she was a competitor. She was a fierce competitor. She dotted every I and crossed every T, and even her confidence on stage. Like, girls would have on thousands of dollars in gowns, and she may have on a fabric dress, and she would sell it, and she would be so confident in it, and she would beat all the girls out in their $1,000 dresses. It was just about that confidence and owning it, and just I get a lot of that from her, where we don't see other contestants. I've never been a girl. She taught me that. I've never seen her when she was competing. She was competing and she was focused on her. She was not on the phone with her girlfriends trying to figure out what is this girl going to do and what she could possibly wear and how she's going to possibly do it. She focused on her and she got ready for the pageant and didn't care about who was competing. And we would hear things like, of course, you always hear things like, oh, they said that this girl's going to win. And they said this is rigged for her. And she's like, well, I'm going to go unrig it. And she would. And
It,
there were times when we would go to a pageant and she blatantly won and they would still cheat her because this woman was doing pageants every week and winning them. So it was like how people sometimes get sick of you being so famous and they want to stop you. And even though when you're not stoppable, they'll just blatantly just spit in your face. I've been at places with her where she's was the obvious winner, but no, because we're sick of you winning. And why are people like that as a community?
yeah,
Why
yeah.
is that? I never understood that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, we vouch for, we want to be accepted in our own community, but at the same time, some of us like to bring us down, or you mentioned the part of the cheating in the pageant, not playing fair, not allowing the rightful winner to have their moment, and no matter how
Mhm.
many crowns you have won, let that contestant win if that contestant have won that night, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, finding your voice is so powerful. And for anyone listening, remember that your story and your experiences do hold power. Now, Aja, from finding your voice to finding your true self, let's
Mhm.
talk about your coming out journey. Coming out and transitioning are deeply personal journeys, right? How did you navigate them and what inspired you to embrace your true self?
Honestly, when I look back over my life and I reflect over the younger me, I wasn't embracing who I was because there was something I was trying to obtain before even loving me, if that makes
Mm,
sense.
it
Because,
does.
and I'm going to say why. Because had I loved myself enough, because of what I seen around me and I seen how things were being obtained, because in this time there were not surgeons who were trans friendly or even doing touching the girls, as they say. So in order for us to obtain these beautiful bodies or these contoured faces, before we knew about a facial film, it was all about silicone. And then remember, a pumping your apple would change the look, darling. And then you would get it in your breasts, and then you would get it in your hips to pull the boy dents out, and then you're looking at me, I can speak for me, and looking at biological women that were, because remember, Luke Skywalker, Uncle Luke was my era when you're seeing the me so horny girls. And
Mm,
the men are raving about this in the videos, and you're thinking, because it's making the men go crazy. And I want the men to go crazy every time I go out the door, but you're not knowing that's really not what you want. Because I remember having silicone and my ass was perfect, but hard as the ground and dark as this chair. But in clothing, it looked amazing. And imagine men chasing you down, honey, turning cars around, you're walking down the street or you're on a bicycle, and these men. So I think that that was not the path that I was looking for, but because I was so busy trying to obtain womanhood, it took me off path, if that makes sense. And like I stated, we didn't have fat transfers or surgeons that were willing to touch the girls and things like that. So by the time those things came along, for some of us, it was too late
mm,
because the damage was done. So now, had I left things the way they were, and now that I have this opportunity to do it the right way, I can't, because now I got to find somebody to reverse it. And something that took an hour took me 20 years to get rid of.
Wow.
Something that took 1 hour or maybe a few sessions, and sticking with someone, if I would have known like the severity and how serious silicone was, I probably would have stuck with one individual, because there are girls that still have very beautiful bodies from silicone and they're still intact. They still are shapely, they still have nice soft, but they stuck with one person. So for me, I wish I would have stayed with Fred, because Fred was doing good silicone.
Hmm.
Once Fred passed away, I think I went to no, Viva. Viva did my face. I never did silicone in the chest because I was determined to get implants. But as far as the body, Fred started me, and some time went, and now I have girlfriends from Miami, and the Miami girls were the body girls. Okay. And that was the talk. We're getting silicone, and Viva's doing the work. And I remember being my best friend Valencia. She had a granddaughter, young and tender, JD mom. And you're young and these people. We're the who's who in the community, and they were like, "Oh, this guy named William is doing the pumping," and you're thinking it's legit because these are girls you talk to regularly. These are not girls that I'm just meeting and they're telling me about silicone. Like, I'm seeing what they have. I'm seeing them doing it. And then it took a turn for the worse after I started to get those things. Because now my girlfriend, God bless her, Chantrell, she started to have issues. And she was like, "Girl, I'm having some issues." I'm like, "Oh, well, girl, I'm fine," as I'm looking in the mirror, juiced up. And I promise you, maybe 2 weeks later, the same thing we had discussed, I started having the same problems.
Mm.
It started to move around in my body, and it moved to like my groin area, and I couldn't walk because my body was rejecting whatever William had pumped into me the second time. Now, the first time, from what I'm hearing, allegedly, the first time the silicone was real silicone because him and Young and Tender had stolen the silicone from Deborah, whoever Deborah was from down south. Okay. So the first batch of silicone was actually silicone, but greed, which gets the best of some people, they decided we're going to mix something up so we can keep
Mm.
making this money. And that's when it all took a turn for the worse for me.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's so important for our members of the community to hear the
Mhm,
truth behind the risks and the
mhm.
emotional toll it can take, right? Your courage to talk about this is so inspiring, and I appreciate you for opening up
Thank
about
you.
this matter. And I'm sure it's going to resonate with
Mhm.
so many listeners.
Yeah.
Now, for someone out there who might be considering silicone injections or other unregulated procedures,
Mhm.
what advice would you give them knowing what you know now?
To be honest, I'm not going to say don't do it. I would say do the research on the individual. Look into the product they're using first. Once again, after my downfall with silicone, then you start to learn things. Like I've heard that silicone doesn't have a smell. It shouldn't have a smell or an odor. And I also heard if you drop whatever it is they're using in your eye, and if it doesn't burn, it's medical grade silicone. Had I known these things and I could have tested these theories, I may not have let that person pump me. And there are girls that are still doing it black market. Let's just be honest about it. There are girls that are still doing the silicone, and there are individuals that are still getting it. So if you're going to go that route, research it and follow your first mind. If you're having any doubts about it, maybe that's your gut trying to tell you something. If you are having good experiences with someone that's doing you and you haven't had any issues, continue to go to that person. But for me, if it was like my daughters or my young nieces or anyone asking me, save your money, do it the right way. We have so much insurance coverage out here that covers trans identity and things that's under these umbrellas. And I work in corporate America, and I work in health now, and I've worked in retail. In both companies, the insurance coverage had a whole sector for transgender individuals.
That's
So
right.
there are avenues out there today that will help you transition the medical way by a
Mm,
board certified plastic surgeon. So there are opportunities to do things in a different manner now.
mm,
So if you are going to go that route, do your research on the individual, stick with that individual. That way you're not pointing fingers and you kind of know who did it to you, if that makes sense, when you start to have the issues. Because when you have so many people touching the body and doing different things, it's kind of hard to point the finger, and then they're going to all be pointing the fingers at everyone else because, well, you went here, you went there, you did this with them. So if you're going to do it that way, stick with one person, do your research, make sure you feel comfortable, follow your first mind. But for me, I'm going to go board regulated surgeon for me now, after my
absolutely.
experience, after living with something so long that took a toll on me mentally, emotionally, and physically. I would do my research and stick to who I know and who I trust if I had that opportunity to do it again.
Absolutely. You have faced challenges, but you have also made an incredible impact. Let's
Hmm.
talk about your work in the medical field. You have dedicated your entire career to health and advocacy. Tell us about your role at the Baptist Health and your work with the Unspoken Treasure Society.
Okay. So, believe it or not, my start in nonprofit and in advocacy started with the Nations Foundation in Richmond, Virginia. Shout out to Zykia McKenzie, who is the owner of the Nations Foundation. And I was going through a transition with my job at the time. This is around COVID. They moved me to Connecticut. COVID came, they pushed us out, things changed, sent me back to Florida. I was in a position that I absolutely did not want to be in. I was unhappy, but I had to pay the bills. Like, the rent still got to be paid, girl. And Secure reached out because I had went to take some HIV certification classes in Virginia. She was really investing in me. She invested time in me, and because I wanted to start a nonprofit because it looked so easy from the outside looking in. And she gave me all the tools. And once she was laying those tools there, I was like, this is really bigger than what I thought. This is a lot of work. So I say, you know what? Why don't I take a step back and get under her wing and learn and see what goes into this? So now after I got certified, she reached out. She was like, I want to offer you a job. And I was like, really? She was like, would you move to Virginia? I was like, you know what? I'm going to step out on faith. I'm going to do this. I'm sick of this job, and I'm a girl that will pick up and move, honey, for the right coin or just for the opportunity. And I took the opportunity, and working for the Nations Foundation, I'm going to tell you something. God places you in places for a reason or a season.
Amen.
And I was doing HIV testing, STI testing, and education. And then I started running the prep clinic. I became a phlebotomist because I was learning so much about community, and the reason I said that if I ever did a nonprofit, it would be inclusive to everyone, because something I learned in nonprofit, the gays were not beating the doors down to be tested. They were beating the doors down for their food pantry and for their emergency housing and stuff. But the heterosexual people were the ones that were coming to be tested on the regular. And that gave me the opportunity to educate my cis women and my hetero men, because a lot of them thought that HIV and AIDS was a gay. And I'm like, no, that's not how this goes. And even they had aha moments. Like, they even thought PrEP, when they saw PrEP commercials, they thought PrEP was only for gay people. And because they didn't see anyone on these billboards or in these commercials that they could identify with.
Right.
So just imagine, had like a Michael Jordan been in these things, honey, the men probably would have been beating the doors down. It's just, I just learned so much in that moment about advocacy, about testing, about how I would do things if I was in that position. And that's why I said I would make things inclusive. So Zykia gave me my kickstart in advocacy, and it opened so many doors. I've done classes for human rights campaign in DC. I've worked alongside Tori Cooper, some of the most amazing people, in advocacy. And I loved everything about that. So shout out to Zykia for giving me my start. And in doing that, it sparked my interest for the medical field, because I was working alongside like physicians in the office and, putting in prescriptions for them and just being able to talk medical. So Zykia giving me that opportunity, honestly, is what sparked me to move forward with like nursing and things like that. So that's where I got my start in medical field. So shout out to Zykia McKenzie. I love you, girl.
Wow, Aja,
Yeah.
you are turning challenges into opportunities for change, and I absolutely love that.
Mhm.
For our listeners, let this be a reminder that your work, no matter how small it feels, can
Mhm.
make a huge difference.
Yep.
Now, from healthcare to pageantry, two very different worlds, and you have done it all. What inspired you to enter pageantry, and what has the journey taught you?
Being showed my first VHS tape. God bless her soul, Vanessa Knight was a big girl that was a dancer. And she was the first crowned Black Miss Parliament. She was from Jacksonville, and she would juke. And I remember meeting her, and she put a VHS tape in. It was Miss Orange County, which used to be held in Orlando, Florida. And all the girls were in this pageant. Santana T. Summers, oh God, Divinity, like all the girls. And then Basha, this is the first time we seen her. She came out and she had on this big hat, and she just was so put together. And when she came out, the crowd was going crazy. And I was like, oh my God, I want that. I want that life. I want to see I want to do that. Like, I was so intrigued, maybe because I was a bit of an attention whore back then, maybe, looking for, and I was getting life off of, what she was doing and how the people were receiving her. And shortly after that, I met Basha. So it's so crazy how life, like, never knew I was going to meet her, being shown a video, and then end up meeting her. And she asked me to be in her presentation for a pageant called Miss Bitch, because she's like, all these people are saying we look alike, and I'm looking for a daughter, like a mommy. I'm doing Mommy Dearest. And from that point forward, I don't think we ever were like apart again. Like, I became her family. Now, it was a while before I became her daughter. I had traveled with her. I had packed her luggage. I was her helper. I made sure things were in order. And the year Heather Fontaine won Miss Florida, we competed. And when we were packing the room up to leave, because I think Basha had made top 5, she made like second runner up maybe. And she was like, everyone, I want to introduce you all to my daughter. Her name is Aja. And that's how I was born that day.
I love that. I love that. Aja, can you tell us your proudest moment when it comes to pageantry, and what titles do you have under your belt? And are you currently reigning as Miss? Tell us
Okay.
what pageant are you currently reigning?
So, all of my moments in pageantry have been proud moments, because I have been one of the girls that were fortunate to go into certain systems and win her first time. And so all of my wins are mean something to me, but the win that means the most to me is Continental Elite. And I say that because the year Erica Norrell won Miss Continental, I entered the pageant. I was a top 12 or top 14 finalist, because they did the top 14 that year. And I got a taste of Continental. Now, after that and navigating my life, this is when my body started to take a turn for the worse with the silicone. So I had stopped doing pageants because I had lost a lot of confidence. And then pageants that I really wanted to be, I thought I could never obtain those titles with, especially with swimsuit being a category, because when you have pageants with the sportswear and a gown and talent, you can cover, but continental swimsuit, it's all about the body and being sexy and just, having that perfect figure. So I had really given up on myself ever being a Miss Continental because of my personal struggles and insecurities with my body, with what was going
Mm.
on, with it being hard. And, I don't want to wear pads and, and I went into a slumber and I stopped doing pageants because I had given up on myself. And that gave me time to focus on my life, my day-to-day life. And me focusing on me gave me that spark again because I started to do shows again. And then I started to play with little different ways to camouflage my body for shows because I still wanted to wear certain things. So imagine playing with all kind of tights and blendings, and because like I said, the body's on point, but honey, it was dark, it was hard. So I came up with an aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
And when I mastered that aesthetic, I took it to the Continental Elite stage and I won swimsuit both nights.
Wow.
So that is why I say that would mean so much to me, because I had given up and I thought I would never, ever be a Miss Continent. Oh, wow. Getting me. And
Mm.
I had given up on myself and I thought I was never going to be a Continental girl. And I proved to myself that I could do it. And I did it with the bad silicone, won the category, won the pageant by 30 points. And I think God works in mysterious ways. And, whoever it is you praise or you have spirituality with, for me, God works in mysterious ways because, believe it or not, after winning Continental Elite in 2019 and coming up with that aesthetic, in 2020 or 2021, I moved to Virginia because of Zakia. And after the journey of going so many places all over the world or just talking with different doctors, and none of them were willing to help me or they wanted these extreme amounts of money, when I started to do the work in Virginia, there was a plan, a greater plan for me that I had no clue about. Just to think, moving and uprooting myself to live in these different places for opportunities. I was given an opportunity to work in advocacy and learn so much about HIV care and prevention.
Yeah.
And I found the doctor who saved my life in Virginia
Wow.
because of that opportunity that I had been given, and I took a chance.
He gave you a second chance. That's
He
so
gave me a
powerful.
second chance, and he was so understanding, and he told me, and I'll never forget the day. He was like, "I'm gonna help you," and he's like, "It's gonna be a rough journey, but I'm gonna help you," and he did. And my removal was hell. It's not, but I am a strong woman, girl.
Yeah.
I remember having literally holes where you could probably put your fist in. And I have pictures and I documented my journey. And I remember having it, he removed all the bad stuff down to what was good. And I literally had open holes and my body regenerated all that new tissue and organ again. Like, the body is such an amazing thing. But it was so painful being on a wound vac and having a nurse come 3 days and just being hardly being able to walk or sit. And it was a journey, but it was all well worth it. I've had 2 of the 3 surgeries. The first one was a removal. My second surgery, which happened last year in May, was a reconstruction. And there is one more surgery that I will have, and it's basically a fat transfer, like a PBL, where he's giving me the shape of my butt again, but it can use a little filler. But I'm happy with it because overall I'm healthy. I'm moving around. I'm not sleeping or sitting on a heating pad at work. It had literally gotten so bad. So just, thinking about that journey and the whole experience and just being placed in that area, never thinking it was going to happen for me, and how it emotionally damaged me. And I had so many insecurities in dating men where I felt like I had to accept certain things because this man knew my insecurities and what my body looked like, and he was so accepting of me. So I felt like I had to accept cheating and infidelity and being treated a certain way because of that, and that was not the case. That person never deserved me and who I was, and just it's a lot as a Black
Mm,
trans woman. It can be a
yeah.
lot.
I feel like for us transgender women, we have to, and it doesn't matter what race you are, right?
Yes.
In order to be a
Hmm.
successful transgender woman, you have to develop thick skin. You
Yes.
have to. You have to. You have to
Yeah.
be resilient. You have to have that thick skin because there are going to be days where it doesn't matter how passable you are, how beautiful you could be. There's always going to be that one person that's going to look at you and they can either laugh at you or mock you, right? Just
Mhm.
because you are a transgender woman.
Yeah.
It's not about what they say to you or what they do to you. It's
Hmm.
how you react to that.
Exactly. Yes. And to sum up the question about Continental will always be near and dear to me. And currently I am Miss House of Royal and Miss Glamorous Legends at this time.
I love
Yeah.
that, and I love the fact that when you did win Miss Continental Elite, which I was in the audience,
Hmm.
you did it with your drag mother by your side.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
such a beautiful moment, such a
Yes.
beautiful moment.
Yeah.
Now
Ah,
now, Aja, can you give us the short version of how you ended up working at Paul's in Orlando and tell us about the tragedy and the experience that you encounter in Orlando, Florida?
I was living in Atlanta and I had a job, Vonage phone company. I was selling phones in Walmart. And I was like, girl, this is rotted. Like, it's got to be something better. Like, I need a change. Something's got to give. And Nima called me. He was like, girl, you want a job? I always get these calls about jobs. And I was like, yes, girl, doing what? And he was like, we need a hostess at the door post in Orlando. I'm like, girl, hell yeah, I get to work in the nightclub. Girl, I literally moved from Atlanta to Orlando. And this was a transition in my life from being incarcerated and things like that. And I didn't have a car. It was like Orlando was just going to be my fresh start to really get myself together. And that's why I was placed there. And I remember I was staying with Angelica, and I was either like catching a bus to work or walking to some degree and Ubering. I didn't have a car and I was working. And then my work ethic showed something to the owner. And within like a month or two, Barbara Poma gave me the opportunity to be a manager.
Mm,
She was like, I love how you treat my patrons. My money's never short. Like you're just your work ethic is I'm gonna make you a manager. So I was managing like Wednesday nights, Tuesday nights, some Sundays. I was doing nights with Nima. It was just a sense of family. Like that was our thing. Like every night of the week it was a club night, but it was just that was our family. That was our safe haven. And I had grown to love and adore like all the kids that were coming out, even the parents or the patrons I was seeing regularly, like throughout the week. And tragedy struck after just getting my life back together and just, being surrounded by so much love and people helping each other. And it was no cattiness. Like it was just a lot of love and helping, whether it was with the shows or, people knowing people who had certain jobs or just, it was just such a good network and just so much love and just, oh my God, I love like Axel and Andrews and Kaya's and the Mr. and Miss Adrian's, and because they were like babies, like starting in entertainment, and then they just loved doing this thing, and then to watch them grow, and then just to watch that be stripped from us, from someone
mm,
that just hated us for being. So imagine us having this bubble, and then that bubble just imploding, and we don't have that safe space anymore, and then everyone's going on to their own dynamics. Like that was so hurtful that we had all of that love and so much going on there, and someone to just come and just take that away from us.
Yeah.
That will always hurt me, and it changed me in a lot of ways. I don't do large crowds anymore. I'm not fond of going to concerts or things with big crowds. I'm more of a shop online, pick up, bring to my car kind of girl now. And I didn't notice those things in the beginning until I started going to therapy. Yes, I went to therapy for 4 years. Best
Wow.
thing, yeah. So I didn't notice those things at the moment, but it really changed me forever in a lot of ways. Even working in the hospital setting, you never know. I'm always looking at people. If I don't see an ID badge, I be giving very, oh, can I help you find something? Because you just in the back, you just never know with people.
Yeah. Yeah. Take us to that moment that that individual, striked on pause that evening. What exactly was going through your mind when you realized what was going on, and where were you at that very moment?
So it was getting close to the 2 o'clock time frame where it's like last call for alcohol.
Yeah.
So I remember going around. I had just left the main bar because it was so packed. And this particular night we had no issues. And it was just like everything was just going so smooth. Like we didn't have to put anyone out the club. We didn't have any foolishness going on. No, no drama. Like it was just a good night. And I remember making my rounds, and because the main room was so packed and I knew Nima kind of ran, that was Nima's night. So I knew Nima could handle the main room. So I remember going to the Adonis Lounge, like, hey guys, last call, let's start wrapping it up, getting everything together so we can get out of here. And then as I was going out to the patio, through the back entrance to the patio to do the same thing, I remember standing talking with Angelica, and me and Angelica are both from Jacksonville. We went to high school together. So we've been sisters for a very long time. And we were talking, and I was like, we were just having a kiki, and we heard something that almost sounded like firecrackers. And we were like, girl, I know they not lighting no firecrackers in this club. So as we went to see what was going on, firecrackers sounded now more like ammunition. Angelica kept going. And then now I'm seeing everyone running, screaming, trying to get out of one door.
Wow.
And when I realized what's going on, I remember literally jumping the fence, and running by the killer's van, which I didn't know that was the killer's van at that time, and getting down the street because Orlando Medical was literally like a block away from Pulse. And I remember getting so far down the street, and the gunfire was so powerful that I thought there was multiple shooters and there was only one. And me and Brian, he was the other manager, he was off that night. He just came to hang out, and we hid in a portal potty because we didn't know what was going on, if they were coming after someone in particular, was it a group? So once we emerged from the portal potties, police are out on bicycles, and they were like, who are you? Because they don't know who they're looking for, suspects. We're like, no, we were at the club, we're the managers. So we got to the hospital for safety. And I remember just being very numb because I wanted to know what was going on and what was happening at my house, but I couldn't be there to see. And now I'm running into people that knew me from working at the club. Their family members are asking me, where is this person? Where is this person? And I couldn't tell them anything because I didn't know what was going on. And I remember my boyfriend at the time, or who is now my husband, he was in Orlando visiting me, and I literally didn't trust anyone. I could not get in an Uber. I didn't know what was going on. And I remember literally sitting on the side of the hospital as the sun rose, and just police everywhere. It was almost like an out of body experience, that something I could not believe was actually happening. And then to find out after not getting any sleep, and you're looking at the news, the body count rising, and it ended up at 49 bodies. And I want to say I almost knew all 49 victims,
Wow.
because they were either individuals I had just hired or that I saw regularly, and we spoke and we communicated. So I could almost possibly say I knew all 49 victims.
Mm,
So it's something that has changed me in a lot of ways, because I was a girl that loved to go out and do things, and that's not me anymore. That's not me
mm.
anymore. No.
Your journey proves that you can be a beacon of hope while being in a traumatic experience in your life. How were you able to cope with that tragic moment back in your journey? I understand that you went into 4 years of therapy.
Hmm.
How were you able to cope with that? And moving forward, how are you able to continue to let being on edge go?
Because my life was spared for a reason,
Hmm.
because I didn't understand why wasn't I one of the 49.
Yeah.
And after, because we're celebrating 8 years, and after 8 years I understand the reason why now, because God had so much more in store for me. There were
Mhm.
things that he was going to do in my life and move for me in my life that I was unaware of at that time. So a lot of times I question, why me? And now 8 years later, I understand why. But I didn't, in that beginning moment, I didn't understand, because it could have very well been me. But like, I didn't understand. But now I understand why, because there was so much more to, or so many more chapters to my book, and so many more other people's lives that I have to touch and, or educate, or just share my story with. So there was a reason. I didn't understand in that moment, but like I said, after therapy and just, as you grow older, you grow wiser. I still have aha moments about myself and about things that I may have not understood in the moment. So it was for a reason. It was for a purpose. Yeah.
Absolutely. I believe that
Yeah.
most definitely. Now, Aja, when you are no longer here, how do you wish to be remembered?
That's a good question, because death today is so different from death yesterday. For those that, because I'm not going to be remembered by everyone, but those that I have made an impact in their life, or I was special to, they'll always remember me, and I just want to be remembered for my honesty, definitely my honesty. And that's why my friends and my family love me. I'm just very transparent and I'm honest. And it's, people's like, oh, that's rude, or you're just being brutal. But those that know me and really understand me, they get it. They get it. They get it. But I just want to be remembered as, wow, just someone that just had a big heart, that was honest. Of course they're gonna say, "Oh, girl, she was some tease." They're gonna say that. I just want to be remembered in a happy way for all the good. Of course there'll be the bad and the stories that make them laugh, but overall, I just want to be remembered, because I just deaf today. People die and they are forgotten so fast. I think we are so desensitized to this thing called death now. I remember when people actually mourned, and it really kind of took a toll on people. And now it's not like that, girl. It's just like, I guess it just depends on the individual, because
Mhm.
I'm still dealing with the loss of my grandfather, who was we were extremely close. Like, I still deal with his death, because he was the one person that was always there for me. And I remember I could just pull up to his house and kick my shoes off and tell him all my needs and my wants, and gripe and mope, and he would make it happen, or he just was always there. And I don't have that person anymore.
Mm.
I don't have that. So I am still grieving the loss of Walter. He's been in my life since I was 15 years old. Like, he used to take me to school, and we've done some things together, and I'm still dealing with I'm still grieving his loss. But I just think losing people today is so different from times ago. Like, yeah. But honestly, overall, just being remembered by those who truly loved me, and I made an impact in their life, and I was just very special to them, just being remembered by those individuals. Yeah.
I'm truly sorry to hear about your loss.
Thank you.
Now, Aja, if you had the opportunity to travel back in time and talk to that little girl, I'm going to
Mhm.
call you little girl.
Okay.
What would you say to yourself that you could do differently to what you now know?
I would tell myself before anything, love yourself because you are important and you deserve whatever your heart desires, and take your time. Take your time. Take your time. Don't rush the process. Love yourself and don't rush the process. That's what, if I could go back and tell young Aja those would be my words to her. Yeah.
That's very powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, before we wrap up, let's lighten things up with the rapid fire round. Are you ready, Aja?
I'm ready.
What is your favorite comfort food?
Seafood.
Dream travel destination?
Dubai.
What is your biggest pet peeve?
Cleanliness.
What's the last song you listened to?
Pump up the jam. Pump it up while your feet are pumping. That's my jam. That was
If
the
you
last song I actually listened to.
if
Pump
you
the
could
jam.
if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
It would be President Barack Obama, because I was able to meet him and President Biden during the post tragedies. And in that moment, I didn't get to say what I want to say or ask for what I wanted. So I would have dinner with Barack Obama.
And what would you say to him if you were to have that dinner?
Erase my credit and my criminal background, please, Mr. President.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
I'm a morning person.
Your favorite LGBTQ plus community icon?
Tiffany Ariakis.
The best advice you have ever received?
To always be true to yourself.
What's your guilty pleasure?
Candy, sweets, candy, sour candy, just candy. Candy is my guilty pleasure.
One word to describe yourself.
Survivor.
I love it. That those answers were so much fun and those were so amazing, Aja. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ada.
Aja, your story is a testament to the power of resilience, authenticity, and community. As we close, what message do you want to leave our listeners with?
Always remember, I'm not above you. I'm not beneath you. I'm right here with you.
Beautiful said. To everyone listening and watching, remember you are enough and your journey is your own. No matter where you are in life, always know that you are loved, you are supported, and you can live out your truth. Thank you for joining us on Out of the Closet into the World, and we'll see you next time. With
Thank you,
gratitude.
Ada.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your platform.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow, that was so beautifully said. To everyone listening and watching, remember, you are enough and your journey is your own. No matter where you are in life, always know that you are loved, you are supported, and you can live out your truth. Thank you for joining us on Out of the Closet into the World. We'll see you next time. With gratitude, Ada. Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and share it with your friends and family. Don't forget to follow me on social media to stay updated and join this movement. I would love to hear your thoughts, so comment below. With gratitude, Ada.